So yeah, when I refer to some of the platform changes that are coming next year,
Mm.
that is one of the biggest.
Oh, wow.
Basically, will be an open, more like.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the VeVe Vantage podcast. This is the best interview we've ever done, and it has so many insights shared for the first time ever, right from the beginning of it until the very end. So you're in for a treat. Our extremely special guest today is the COO and co-founder of Ecomi VeVe Collectibles, Daniel Crothers. As many of you know, Dan doesn't really do interviews, so it took a lot of time and effort to turn this idea into a reality. And man, he did not disappoint. In this super in-depth 90-minute conversation, he shares so many things from the technologies and capabilities of the VeVeVerse to the Master Collector program to the OMI Tokens, crypto pay in, crypto pay out, cash out, interoperability, transfer, marketing, and a whole lot more that you do not want to miss. As always, don't forget to leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe to the channel. We work very hard to bring you these exclusive interviews so that you can get the information directly from the people who make things happen. Now, let's get to our very important, wide-ranging conversation with VeVe COO and co-founder Daniel Crothers. All right. Dan, welcome to the VeVe Vantage podcast. Thank you so much for spending your precious time with us today. We are super honored to have you here because we understand how busy you are. And you're also having a call from your trip to New York. And also, this is your first in-depth interview on a VeVe fan channel. So this will be a very unique opportunity to learn more about the operational side of VeVe. And so we are super excited to chat with you and, to get more insights about your work as the co-founder and COO of VeVe and your vision for the company. So really appreciate you being here with us.
Thanks so much for inviting me on. Great to meet you both in New York. And also, credit to you to keep pestering me to come on the show.
Yes. I spent 10 minutes picking the right GIF and I was
was
so glad it
perfect.
worked. I
I
actually
saw
looked
that.
up. Sorry, go on.
I saw that and I had to laugh.
I actually look up Hello Hobbit for whatever reason. Maybe because you guys are from New Zealand and the movie was filmed there, but that was one of the options. But glad that it worked out, and I will leave the spotlight to Miss V with this first question.
All right, Dan. So the first and probably the most important question for you is, what's your favorite VeVe content channel and why is it VeVe Vantage?
Well, that seems like a loaded question, to be honest. Do I need to loop in Legal Dave on this one?
Yes, bring him on.
Well, of course, VeVe Vantage is my favorite, but I do have to say that I do appreciate everyone who creates content for the VeVe fam. It's if not for you guys and everyone else, VeVe like literally wouldn't be what it is today. So both Dave and I are very, very appreciative of everything you guys and everyone else does.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we want to get a little bit of a personal profile on you for not only the people who are familiar with VeVe and all its intricacies, but also for the people who may have been onboarded during New York Comic Con, perhaps. So as the COO of VeVe, how do you start your day and what does a typical day look like for you? And second part to that question would be, how have your responsibilities shifted or evolved from when you started to today?
Okay, yeah. So to address the first question, basically wake up, have a triple shot coffee to engage my brain for the madness that is ahead. But then, yeah, typically my day nowadays is mostly just meetings, back-to-back meetings with all of our key team members, our heads of departments, and that covers things like marketing, production, engineering, operations, etc. And then also, Dave and I are still very, very active with a lot of our licensors. So I'm in New Zealand here. The time zone actually works quite well for us. So in the morning when I wake up from 8 a.m. till, let's say, around about midday my time, we're meeting with all of anyone who's in sort of America or over to that side of the world. Then generally between 1 and 5 would be meeting the majority of my New Zealand team. And then from 5 onwards is when all of the sort of Asia-based engineering teams come on board. So my day is kind of broken up into those sort of geographic time zones. But yeah, typically a lot of meetings just to make sure everyone is on track. You know, as COO, my job is to make sure they have a lot of support and they're getting everything that they need, because, you know, VeVe is very fast paced. I mean, even, you know, the amount of drops we do, the 3D content we push out is, you know, crazy in terms of the amount of volume. So we have to have very, very optimal systems. So I'm always working with the teams to see how we can make things better and improve them kind of overall. And then also during the week or during days of the week, you know, there's always a lot of time spent on, you know, what is the future of VeVe? I mean, you know, for me, in my brain, like when I think of VeVe, I think of VeVe like midway through 2024. So, you know, I know what's coming. I know what it's going to look like, what features we're going to have. So every time I open the app, I'm like, it's so old and it's so boring. So it's a little bit frustrating having to wait, you know, all these months for the exciting stuff to come out. But yeah, that's typically my day. And then, you know, like anyone in business, answering hundreds of emails, communicating with the teams on Slack, just keeping the beast going, basically. And the second question, yeah, so I mean, it's obviously changed a lot. Back in the early days when it was just me and David and a very small team, it was very, very hands-on. I mean, like I did all the UI, all the design, all the copy. It was basically me and one other person doing all the 3D. So we were very, very involved. I mean, you know, I was doing all the posting, loading up the content into the app. But as the company has grown and expanded, we obviously have like people and resources that handle all of that stuff now. And that's why rather than me being sort of hands-on or in the weeds on that type of work, I'm more meeting with the people who are in charge of making sure that that stuff comes to fruition.
Right. So you are obviously extremely busy and you don't have a lot of free time, but when you do have your free time, how do you spend it?
You know, most of the time, like my days are very intense. There's a lot of braining going on. So I absolutely love to just Netflix and chill with my wife, or, you know, invite some friends over and just chill out, watch movies. That's a real good way, just, you know, for me to let my brain wind down a little bit. Also love karaoke. You know, to get the you know, to get some of that work stress out. It's great to, you know, thrash a death metal song every now and then. Obviously I like to socialize a lot. You know, I guess anybody who has met me on the events knows that I do like to party a little bit. So I definitely like to work hard, play hard in that regard. And then my most recent sort of activity this year is I started racing in a V series over here in New Zealand, which has been a lot of fun.
Oh, is that the race? I saw like a VeVe team. You guys were racing like a Honda Civic or something, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll say it's a Honda Civic on the outside, but
okay.
Yeah.
What is the horsepower on that vehicle?
It's a bit of a beast actually. It's 400 horsepower, so it's
Wow.
very, very small, light car. But no, I was very fortunate to just, as I was starting to get into this, to meet somebody here in New Zealand who is a very, very experienced racer. He was looking to get out of racing and to become more of like a pit boss, team manager. So yeah, it's been super, super fun actually. I've got my next race in a couple of days, so really hoping I get over this cold before round.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing, you know, a little bit about your life, because obviously the way people look at the team is like you guys are always busy. So it's pretty awesome to know a little insight about what you guys do in your free time and what your day looks like. So going back to the company, you are the COO of VeVe and Ecomi. So operationally, what is something cool or interesting that not many know about VeVe/Ecomi?
Whoa, wow, there's probably a lot. I guess, one thing that maybe people don't realize is that, any drop that we do, especially 3D drops, like they might start 8 to 12 months out from the actual drop
Wow.
date. So there's a lot of work involved. We go through many, many rounds and many different stages during the 3D production process, and that expands longer if there is like animation or if there's special effects or if there's audio. And then there's all of the, reviewed rounds that we do with the licensors. We actually work quite closely with a lot of the licensors. They collaborate a lot on the content we drop and the, sort of the look and feel of it. What else? I mean, VeVe is in excess of 100 people now.
Wow.
Obviously, me and Dave just doing our me and Dave thing. I have to call him up each day and just say, "Hey, Dave, your hair looks good."
Right. So last time I talked to David, which was maybe 2 months ago, you guys were at maybe 77, but you guys have grown over 100.
Yes, we're actively hiring now. Mostly, obviously, engineering team we're always building that out. The roles get more and more granular. In the production team, we are bringing in a lot more people in-house. We work with studios, and we have some in-house people, but we're looking to bring a lot more of that set in-house just to speed up the process, make it a little bit more optimized, etc. And same with marketing as well. There's a whole bunch of roles that we're bringing on for marketing as well.
Right. So you have the VeVe app, the VeveVerse, Ecomi, OMI, marketing partnership, and everything else in between, which is a lot, right? How do you prioritize which features or initiative to focus on, with the company's time, effort, and resources? And how would you rank these projects in priority at the moment?
Great question. I mean, I guess, we have teams that work on each of these areas individually. Obviously, we've got the engineering team, the product design team that works on, the VeVe app across mobile and web. We have teams that work on the VeVeVerse, teams that work on OMI. Obviously, we've got our marketing side. So a lot of this stuff really does happen concurrently. And that's a lot of the reasons, I have so many meetings just to make sure that, everyone has what they need and things are moving ahead. Obviously, there's always obstacles when we're working with new technology like this. But in terms of sort of prioritizing, I mean, I guess, at the end of the day, VeVe is a collectibles business first and foremost. So that's what we always want to focus on, that we are always rolling out, new drops, because obviously we have a lot of licensors that we want to keep happy. So that's really the key focus, making sure that drop machine, kind of keeps running. And then outside of that, it's just, there are areas that in the business that become stronger because, more effort or attention has been put into it. And once that's kind of handled, I then might move on to another area that needs a little bit of assistance or some help. So yeah, I mean, they're all the thing is they're actually all priorities. So yeah, we generally try to run a lot of things concurrently, and that seems to be a special skill that David and I have. We're able to manage a lot of these different projects at all times.
Right, Mr. V.
Yes. So what would you say was probably like one of your most memorable or difficult experiences in managing these partnerships from when you started to today? Because of course, there's so many macro factors that may have been at play for the company, and I think it's very unique, a very unique situation that everyone had to face. Learning how to pivot on short notice, and also trying to cater to these different partnerships that you guys have had. So, what might have you found as being very you ended up on the positive side or on the with some sort of upside?
Well, I mean, to be honest, there have been many, many different challenges that we've had to overcome in VeVe. And one day I truly hope we get to make some kind of Netflix documentary about it so we can share all of the joys and heartbreaks and tears and everything throughout the whole journey that it's been. But I guess, in the early days, it was quite nice actually, because we were sort of building out the concept of what it was. And, the first few years, it was really just David and myself and a small team, designing the product and trying to understand what would be the best way. And we settled very early on saying that, we don't want to change the way people collect or change what collecting is. We want to make sure that what people know and love in the physical world of collecting is all embodied within VeVe, and the only difference is that it's a digital medium. So that was a really fun period for the first sort of 1 to 2 years, where we were just able to work on designs and get the small engineering team to build very basic sort of MVPs. And then probably after the first year was when we really started reaching out to a lot of the licensors. And then sometimes I think back and they had these 2 random Kiwi guys turn up on their doorstep. And we mostly got there because David is very tenacious. He's like a dog with a bone. He'll just keep emailing. A lot like you, actually, Will.
Hey, thank you.
And then, so these 2 random Kiwis would just sort of turn up out of the blue with our strange accents. And then, I think we managed to get a lot of success with the licensors early on, because, we really were approaching it from a collectibles point of view. I mean, obviously every business needs to make money, but, our passion has always been the actual collecting, the collectability side of it. So, some of the challenging parts were, in the beginning, when we first went to the licensors, they were like, digital collectible, what? Like they had no idea. And then back in the early days, we would say it was blockchain, and then they would say, oh, isn't that Bitcoin thing? And then they would sort of start to lose interest. So there were lots of sort of pivots in our approach, and understanding what we needed to say or what we shouldn't say to these licensors, to help them understand that yes, this is very new, it's completely untested, but hey, put all your trust in us. And thankfully we were able to convince quite a few in the early days. And this is when we didn't even have an app. I would basically bring up a PowerPoint presentation just with images of what the app was going to look like. And then we would, we would always go back and back and back. I mean, like, to get these licensors on board, and this was also one of the sort of challenges, was, we would have to go see these guys like 10, 15 times before we would, get across the line. And the great thing was that every time we went back, we had some more progress on the app. And I think it was when we finally implemented the AR side of it, and we could go into these boardrooms and drop a Batman or a whatever on the table, that they were like, wow, I get this, this is really cool. So that was the licensors was challenging, but I mean not bad. I mean, you don't get anywhere in life without facing some challenges. And then of course it's just I guess the first year after launching the app was probably the biggest challenge, because I remember David and I I think it was late 2020, where I was over at his place having dinner, and we were sitting around the kitchen table, and we sort of looked at each other and we were like, man, I really hope someone buys a digital Batman, because it was totally unproven at that point. So because we didn't really know what the response was or what the uptake would be, we built the first iteration of the app to grow from 0 to 50,000 users in over the course of 12 months. But then after we launched a couple of months in, obviously that was right in the hype of the of the NFT bubble coming up, and it just went absolutely crazy. Hundreds of thousands of users. So the app would break, the drop system would fail because there was just too many users. So I would always, because the drops in New Zealand were like 3 a.m. So I would always wake up in the morning on because I think we did it on, we always did our drops on Friday back then, because it was only once a week. And I'd wake up in the morning on Saturday, look at my phone and see how many messages I had from the developers to know whether I needed to, either I could sleep in although I needed to get up straight away and deal with it. So that was quite challenging. But these are kind of good problems to have. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, just growth of a business or rapid growth of a business is always challenging. Finding good people, making sure there's always a balance. Like VeVe is a very intertwined, complex business. We've got to keep users happy, licensors happy. We've got to keep the employees happy, the sentiment up. And all of these things are quite sort of challenging in themselves. And it's a very sort of fine balance to find.
Certainly sounds like.
Mr. V, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that certainly sounds like quite the workload for you guys. All right, so looking forward, looking ahead, we have the VeVeVerse. We had a few users, a good amount of users who had access, beta access to the VeVeVerse, and we haven't quite heard much about it since. We understand that they're able to speak with you guys directly and share any complications or anything that needs to be addressed, maybe some good things, maybe some work in progress that they're making. But as you may have heard, there's a lot of people who are pretty anxious about getting access as well. So is there any progress that you could share on that front? And you don't necessarily need to say when the next wave of users would be able to have access, but maybe the progress and how everything is faring so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just keep in mind, that we've been in beta for 2 months, which is a pretty short amount of time for a beta period. And the whole purpose of bringing these, first wave of users in is to really stress test the system and the platform. And if you did not get selected for the initial beta, I do apologize. I'm not trying to leave anyone out, but I did specifically look for people who had been very active in the showrooms, like all the Vaultaholics, etc., because I wanted to make sure that the people who we give access to are actually going to, use it and use it a lot. And boy, do they use it. I mean, some of these beta testers, the amount of hours they spend in there is just crazy. And I guess the first thing I'd like to say is, my expectation for the VeVeVerse, because I think, most people will understand that, when you enter your home space, you've got like a building and a sort of like a platform area. And my expectation was, people would use that, they would go inside the building, they would set up their collectibles, put their artwork up on the wall, maybe put some stuff on the outside. But what people are creating is just way beyond my expectation, like entire worlds, like fantasy lands, themed experiences. It's actually insane, like what some of these guys are producing at the moment. And for me, at first I was like, oh well, that's kind of different to what I expected, but it made me realize that the VeVeVerse really goes beyond just a showroom. I mean, it is your own personal 3D space in the metaverse that you customize, to your heart's content, whether you want an all Batman theme or all Marvel theme, or or you want to create a castle. So it's been really, really exciting to watch what the beta testers have been doing. But overall, the good news is that the platform itself is actually very solid. There's been some great feedback from the beta testers. Really nothing major, no kind of major issues or major bugs, because just keep in mind, this platform has been around for quite a while. It's not like we've just sort of built it and rolled it out. So a lot of it is just sort of small tweaks, even things like setting up roles and permissions. And an example of that would be like, I might want to invite you guys into my space, my home space, so you can, help me design it. So that requires, us setting up specific roles and conditions. So you can do certain things, but you can't do other things that might compromise somebody's home space. So just really refining all of these little user experience parts of the VeVeVerse. And then the other major delay, which I'm sure everybody wants to know, is primarily around the assets. So we sort of anticipated, and when I say the assets, I mean the collectibles and comics that you can bring in. So initially we had some really solid scripts to basically import all of the assets. It would bring in all of the complex shaders, all the animation, the scripts and everything. And that that worked well for maybe around 50% of the collectibles, especially all the season 1, because they're very basic, a 3D model, some textures, and that's it. Very, very, very simple. But obviously, as VeVe has, grown as a business, we're now offering animation. You've tap to click. There's interactivity. So all of this stuff requires custom scripts to be written to handle every single case. And then sometimes some of the assets, like for example, the Lamborghinis, like in order to get the Lamborghini to look, the way it looks with the beautiful metallic paint job, there are things called custom shaders, which basically determine how the 3D object looks. So we've had to do quite a lot of work on just getting those scripts updated, bringing them in, testing them, making sure they're all working. So I wouldn't say it's a laborious process, but there's just quite a lot of work involved. In fact, made me realize how many collectibles we've actually dropped a couple of years is quite insane for a 2-year-old business launched to public. But the good news is we're down to, I think, the last 30 or 40 assets now. And once those assets are ready to go, we'll basically be bringing in the next round of beta testers. And what we will likely do, because I, like you guys and everyone else, like I am very, very eager to get, this out into the hands of everyone. It's not like I'm sitting in my office going, ha, 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 they don't have it. I'm very, very keen because we work very hard on it. We want people to use it and enjoy it. So yeah, if the assets do end up taking a little bit longer than we anticipate, we may just start inviting more beta testers in. But if those assets aren't ready, then we won't make them available in your home space. So that would just mean you'd go into your collection and you may not see an asset in there, or if you click on an asset, it may not load into the platform. So I don't want it to go on too much longer, waiting for these assets to be done. So that's kind of the plan. So I hate to say dates, but please don't troll me on Twitter if we don't hit this, but around the 15th of November, I'll be making a call at that point. And so, yeah, we'll either have all the assets done by then, or there'll still be some pending, but from around that period is when I want to start bringing in more users. And that'll probably be 100 to 200 people per week. And again, it'll be, we are still in betas. We want to be making sure that the people that come in are going to be using it fairly actively, with of course a sprinkle of people who may not be active in that area, because I want to see what the uptake for those people is like as well.
I also have a personal story. So I bought an extra phone just to, so I don't have VeVeVerse access, so I don't know too much about it. But back when I first started making content, I love filming people's showrooms like on the phone. So my phone is kind of old, so I bought this new iPhone, just to film showrooms. And I do notice the like how season 1 collectible, especially the Batman black and white series, they are super easy to load. Like I visited my friend Dylan's showroom, and he has pretty much every single Batman black and white collectibles in a showroom, and it ran smoothly. But then I visited other showrooms that has maybe 2 Elsas, or maybe 1 Walt, or maybe some animated collectibles, and the showroom would not even open. I do see that challenge. I've kind of experienced that challenge that you guys are facing.
Yeah, I mean, the VeVeVerse is an entirely new piece of technology. And one of the reasons why we haven't done too much with the existing virtual showroom that we have in the app right now is because, of course, we knew that this VeVeVerse is coming out, and that has a lot of additional features to help optimize the loading. So, for example, there's a feature which is used widely in games called LOD, which is level of detail. And what that means is, let's say you've got a Black Panther that's right up close to the camera, and that Black Panther has a texture on it, and that texture is the color, like the black and silver and everything of his suit. And then you've got another texture which is called a smoothness map, and that determines which parts are shiny. Black Panther's got those little shiny things along here, and which parts aren't shiny. And then you've got another texture map called a normal map, and that basically adds in all of the detail into the character. And with obviously the higher resolution those textures are, the better the asset looks. And you guys have probably heard that a lot of the assets in the VeVeVerse look substantially better. In fact, just to quickly digress, as both me and another guy in the company were going through and testing everything, making sure the assets look good in the testing environment, I'm like, damn, that looks so good. The amount of stuff that I have gone and brought from the market since I started seeing how cool this stuff looks is crazy. But anyway, so when the character is or the collectible is close to the camera, we want to be using those very high resolution text. But if the collectible is way off in the distance, we don't want to be rendering that super high resolution because it's taking a lot of computation power. So LOD, level of detail, basically just says that the further away you are from the camera, the lower resolution those textures will be. That's not something that we have in the VeVe showrooms at the moment. So that's just one example of how we're managing the load on the CPU to make sure that we can offer a better experience than what we've had so far.
Right. So, Mr. V, you have a question about Ready Player One?
Yeah. So I was talking to a couple big collectors, namely the person who asked this was Mr. 41, and he was wondering if the goal was still Ready Player One.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I loved that book. I loved the movie. It's been a big inspiration for me on building out the VeVeVerse. And in a way, the virtual showrooms we have right now, even though they are very, 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 very simple, it is all of these brands and all of this IP that we all know and love in this one virtual space. And just as a side note, that's something David and I had to fight very hard for in the early days. Most licensors wanted all of their collectibles to be separate from everyone else's IP. But we would always say, like, if you look at behind me, as a collector, I want all my collectibles on the shelf. Licensors don't care if I do this at home. So why care if they do that in the virtual space? So that was actually one of the challenges that we had to overcome. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, the vision for Ready Player Me is really cool. I think it's probably what everyone wants, and it's also, since it's such a well-known movie, I think it's a really good way for people to understand, what the VeVeVerse is. Right.
So is there going to be integration with Unreal Engine? So that's like a technology. And this is the second part of this question is like, are you going to integrate it with devices like the Meta Quest 3 or the Apple Vision Pro?
Yes, we already can port to Unity and Unreal. Unreal looks unreal. I mean, just the level of quality. I mean, for anyone who's seen the comparatives between, Unity and Unreal Engine, I mean, Unreal Engine is almost photorealistic. So we can already port to both. Like I use both. The challenge with Unreal is that you need a very, very high spec computer to run, at the highest quality. So, it is important for us with the VeVeVerse that it is accessible, to the widest range of users. I mean, there's no point building something for, 10% of the community out there who have some epic gaming machine. So what we will be doing is that the initial version will roll out as Unity, and then moving into the new year, we will start to roll out the Unreal version. And there's a lot of very, very cool stuff that very sadly I can't talk to you about that is coming with the Unreal Engine version. It just, you know, it's such a major step up. The metals look 100% real. The skin textures look amazing. And ultimately what we want to do is provide the absolute best experience to everyone across the widest range of devices. So we're already integrating MetaQuest 3. We're basically actually already ready for Vision Pro because it uses basically the same integration as the iPhone does. And the other key technology that we're working on is the streaming feature. And so what that basically means is that, you know, in our server clouds, we'll basically just have epic gaming machines that can render your home space, all using Unreal at the highest possible quality. And then it's just going to stream to your phone, your tablet, your TV, your desktop, in the same way that you watch Netflix. There's been a couple of game companies that have you know, tried to do this. There was the Google one, I think it was called Stadia, I think it was called.
Yep.
And they were okay, but the challenge with playing a game is that your ping has to be so low, you know, because you're trying to, if you're sniping someone, like it has to be extremely accurate. So that was one of the major challenges they had. But with the VeVeVerse, it's more of a creator environment, a social environment. There's not that need to be like pinpoint accuracy down to the millisecond. So yeah, we're very, very confident that this is going to be the way to move ahead. In fact, we already have the streaming set up and running, but it's, you know, right now it's still a very expensive technology. So we're just working on how we can optimize that. And then our plan for next year is that we will essentially roll out VeVeVerse fully streaming. And the great thing about that is it means that no matter what device you have, as long as you have a reasonable internet connection, you'll be able to browse either your space or other worlds or other people's space without having to have that latest graphics card, that high power gaming machine. It's very important to me to make sure that it's ubiquitous as possible. We want to, you know, I want people to be able to share a link on Facebook, Twitter, wherever, and then anyone can click on it and you know, and participate in it. So outside of that, the apps will still be available to download. I do see a couple of questions around, you know, whether VeVeVerse is web. It's not web-based. And for the reason being is that web is way, way, way too limited. In the 3D space, there's just not enough you can do. So streaming allows us to make it kind of web-based, but it's still coming off a very high-powered game spec machine. Or alternatively, you can choose to download the app on desktop to have that experience if that's what you want.
Can you define streaming? Because for me, streaming means like live streaming. Basically, I'm walking around and yeah.
Yeah, good point actually. So what I mean is actually video streaming. So what will happen is that there's the server cloud that's basically going to render so you're going to enter your home space. It's all going to be rendered on the server, and then it's going to be compressed and then streamed to your browser and then basically played to you as an interactive video. Now it's a minor lag in there, but really not noticeable enough to be an issue at all. And obviously this is going to improve over time. And that just means, because, you know, everyone can watch Netflix, everyone can watch Prime, whatever. It's basically just streaming video. So by having that technology available to us to be able to render it on a super high power gaming machine and then just stream it with very low latency to whatever device you have. You could have like an iPhone 3, as long as it's connecting to the internet, and you'll be able to participate with the highest quality graphics. So the whole idea around the streaming is that it's not device dependent, because if it is device dependent, that brings our market down, you know, significantly to those people who have those high spec machines.
So basically, whatever device I use, I can still get into my VeVeVerse home and walk around. because all the computing power, sorry, I'm not super technical,
Yep.
because all the computing power is done elsewhere. And I would just get that feed of video of me doing things.
Exactly. Yep. Interactive video. And so you can still use your mouse, your keyboard, and obviously you can run around. All of those commands are still going back to the server. And it's, yeah, the experience is actually, even right now when we're just at the end of the MVP or MVP2, it's still very interactive. And even in addition to that, all the social features, I mean, everything works. It's just a matter of us now getting ready to roll that out at scale, getting the cost structures down, etc. But that's ultimately where we want it to go.
Ms. V, do you have, I know you have some questions on maybe land sales and other things?
Yes, definitely. So are land sales still on the table for the VeVeVerse? And if so, how would one acquire said?
I mean, in recent times, land sales have become quite an issue with the SEC. So we do need to play very carefully in that space. We absolutely want to offer land. However, it may not exactly be land, like perhaps in VeVe City, you can get, an awesome apartment in one of the buildings in there or something along those kind of lines. But we also want to make sure that, when we do offer these kind of things, that it's the collectors that, have the opportunity to get hold of these things. So rather than, like, for example, like, let's just say we made it crypto-based, like anyone could come in and just buy it all up. And then the actual fans of VeVe, the people who use VeVe, may not have an opportunity to own that. So there'll definitely be a component of, your level, your rank, MCP points. I mean, everyone will still get something. But let's say, for example, if you're like a master collector, you may get or have access to, I can't say right now whether you will own it or not, but it might become allocated to you as like, that is your apartment in VeVe City, or, this is the building or the space that you have. But it's very important that we still keep it tied into the app and make sure that people who are collecting still have the opportunity to acquire that space.
So a lot of community members are wondering, beside lands, there's going to be some accessories in the VeVeVerse. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, the great thing about the VeVeVerse, and especially your home space, it's not just going to be limited to, you can drop in your collectibles or your comics. We want people to be able to decorate it, to your heart's content. And whether that's, indoor pot plants or furniture or, some IP-based rug or a themed wall or whatever. Like, I think these are the things that add that real extra special bit of detail and personalization. So coming into next year, we will absolutely be starting to drop accessories, and that could also even include things like specific wallpapers or, like I say, furniture, different types of lighting, just so you have the opportunity to really personalize your space overall. So yeah, that is absolutely coming.
Right. And so we have a couple like shorts for you, which is, would there be a main lobby or space that we can portal ourselves to?
Yeah, so the way it works is that when you enter or load the VeVeVerse, you basically go into a lobby. It's just a 2D lobby, and it basically will list all of the spaces that you own, because you can have as many spaces as you want. Like I said earlier, you might want a Marvel one, you might want a Disney one, you might want a James Bond one. So you've got all of your spaces. Then you've got all of the spaces that people have made public, that anyone can enter. And then you've also got all of the spaces that other people have invited you to join. So there's the 3 levels of permissions in the VeVeVerse. And number 1 is private, which is just your space. No one else can see it. No one else can enter it. Then you've got shared spaces where I can invite you guys into my home space. And when I invite you, I can choose what you can do in there. Are you just a guest? Can you walk around? Or can you be a creator? Can you help me do things in there? And then the third type is public, where anyone, anywhere, anytime can enter.
And what about gaming? Is that still on the cards for later on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I've mentioned in the past that there is a scripting language built into the VeVeVerse. There are, of course, limitations, with any IP, like some IP is more open than other IP, but there will absolutely be some degree of gaming down the line. One of the opportunities I've touched on in the past is, creating like a car racing world, which is just full of like awesome racetracks. And if you own a Lambo or you own the Aston Martin or whatever, you can basically enter that world. So that vehicle will be your pass to enter that world. And then there will be sort of set times with set races, maybe with a knockout tournament. I mean, that kind of stuff we are able to do. Some licensors may not want to be part of that, and that's totally their right. But the great thing about gamification is that it's a very good retention tool. Like there are people out there who will love to come in and just create, like ongoing create. There's other people who want to come in just to be purely social, and there's other people who want to come in and play games and interact and be entertained. So I do see that as a part of the future of the VeVeVerse. But again, everything's in kind of steps and stages, and we need to make sure we get the adoption, which means we need to make sure we roll out things like streaming and all of that kind of technology first, before we sort of go heavily into that area. But from the get-go, you will be able to use some basic kind of built-in script, because the scripting language is very in-depth. You could potentially create a small game with it. However, there will be some limitations on that in the beginning. But with the built-in scripts, you can do things like, make your collectibles rotate at a certain speed, or it can like bounce up and down, or it can move from here to there. So there's going to be that extra level of sort of interactivity and customization with it.
Right. So, Mr. V, go on.
Yes. So with expanding with expanding your reach to the broader market, I think that VeVe has partnerships not only with the different IPs, but like with different platforms such as DC Palm, McFarlane, Cryptoys, and the like. Do you think that partnerships with those other companies are an option that you guys are open to considering? And with that, it comes the question, like, would interoperability be another layer to that as well?
The big I word. Well, to touch on your first point, I mean, the VeVeVerse for me, I mean, what my vision for it is that it is a space where you can bring anything you own in. I don't want it to be exclusive to VeVe. I would love it if you could connect your MetaMask wallet and you could bring in, all of your, any 2D sort of JPEG images in, and then maybe you could put a frame on it. Or say, for example, with McFarlane, the 3D assets that they have could potentially be brought in. I mean, I think that would be the ultimate vision, because right now, it just provides another extra layer of what you can do with that stuff. And it's like, I don't want to have a room for just my VeVe stuff. Like I said earlier, I want to be able to bring it all in. So that's the ultimate goal. I mean, I can't say we're in discussions or anything like that with these companies. And there's obviously going to be technology barriers and format barriers, because we have very, very specific formats and file sizes and limits, etc., for the VeVeVerse. So there's like a technology hurdle there. But, my hope is that as the VeVeVerse grows and it expands, it does become a central point where people can bring anything in. And, maybe that might inspire other people who are creating NFTs, whether it's a brand or an artist, to produce that item in 3D, because they know there is an audience out there who wants to bring it into this 3D space and enjoy it in that way, rather than, just in a wallet. And in terms of interoperability, I mean, it is a bit of a sensitive topic. Like a lot of the time, it actually comes down to our licensors. The NFT space is still a little bit of the Wild West. and we do need to be respectful of our licensors. There are obviously some people who do want to go interoperable. That also is quite a lot of technology build on our side. So I mean, my personal view, not talking from the company, is that the future will be interoperable. You know, I can move my 3D asset from this world to that world, or let's say, for example, we do a game drop on VeVe, and that is a special skin or a special character. I can then potentially use that in the game, you know, that's come out. But for us, for VeVe, we are really more of a commercial application as opposed to sort of the open Wild West, of the NFT space. But, these are all just baby steps. I think, we all live in a technological age and people want things to happen like that. Behind the scenes, there are a lot of, challenges and obstacles that people may not be aware of.
Would you be able to show a demo of the VeVeVerse? Hey guys, just a quick message. Every week, I, Mr. V, work over 20 hours to bring you the most non-BS VeVe content. English is my second language, and there were nights we recorded until 1 a.m. My brain stopped processing, and I naturally spoke Vietnamese to him, and it got pretty weird. But that's just how dedicated we are to this podcast. In return, we ask you to enter a gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. for you, but we ask you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, and tweet at us to tell us what you think, because those comments will ultimately help us to refine the content just for you. That's it. That's all you need to do. Let's get back to it. One of the major questions from the community is, obviously, not everybody is a designer. I'm a terrible vault designer. And so the question here is, can a total beginner, can a regular person like myself or Mr. V come in and actually enjoy the VeVeVerse and build something in our space that actually have the motivation and the convenience of using a product to stick around?
Yeah, great question, actually. I mean, one of our objectives with VeVe was to make it as easy as possible. I mean, you got to remember, this was a time when, when VeVe came out, you could buy NFTs, but you had to know crypto. You had to have a wallet, private keys, all of that stuff, which from the very get-go, we always saw as a major barrier, which is why VeVe is the way it is. Even though there's all the blockchain stuff behind the scenes, we wanted to make sure that all of that complicated stuff was hidden and the experience was easy. And now you download VeVe, you log in, you like that one, you click on it, you see the 3D, you buy it. You know, it's very, very simple. And so that we absolutely wanted to bring that philosophy through into the VeVeVerse as well. And that's why, you know, with the beta testers, there were a couple of people in there who I did select who weren't, you know, necessarily what I would consider like a vaultaholic, because I wanted to see, you know, what the learning curve was like. And in the beginning, they were like, I won't name names, don't worry.
David?
It was sort of like, oh, you know, it's a bit challenging. I don't really know what to do. But then a week after that, they were like, I've got it. It's so easy. And I think the thing to remember is like the VeVeVerse essentially is a 3D application. You know, you can import your 3D models from the library. You can move them around. All of that kind of stuff is quite basic. If you play games or anything like that, I mean, hey, I can't say my mum and my dad are going to be able to jump into it and have fun. But yes, from the get-go, we've always wanted to make sure that it is very easy to use. But the VeVeVerse is also multi-layer, you know, in the sense that you can do the basic stuff, you can bring your collectibles in, you can position them. Whether they look good or not comes down to creative ability. So I can't guarantee that. That's a personal thing. And that's why we gave the option, you know, you can invite someone else in as a co-creator. But there are other levels where you can, you know, for me, one of the really cool things about the VeVeVerse is that we've got a whole lot of different, just random shapes that you can bring in, whether it's a cylinder, a cube, a pyramid, whatever. And then you can drag those in, you can change their size, do everything like that. You can add different textures to them. So there's a texture library in there. This is like sort of a level up from just the basic bringing your collectibles in. It really gets into that kind of creator level. Now, there is absolutely a learning curve in that, but it's very basic. You basically import a cylinder, you click on your materials button, and you click apply. So, but that concept of applying a texture to a 3D object, that's really just a small kind of learning curve and understanding, you know, how that works. And it's just with those features alone is, you know, what the beta testers have created. Amazing, insane. Yeah, I really can't wait for them, and I know they can't wait to be able to show you what they're. I'm sure they've loaded it up on Twitter and just like, oh, should I post? Should I post?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's other layers like the like the scripting language. So it all kind of depends how you want to use it, how you want to interact with it.
Mr. V, do you? I know you have a question on how like IPs and artists are building maybe potentially building their own cities and stuff.
Yeah. So do the IPs have any involvement, active involvement with the VeVeVerse, or is this exclusively on the user end?
So our goal is so every user will have their own personal home space or spaces, and we can all go visit each other's spaces, all of that. But outside of that, our goal is absolutely to have different worlds. And those worlds could be VeVe City, it could be Racetrack World. And I can't go into too much detail, but we are absolutely in discussions and in sort of the early planning stages of building out these other worlds. From my perspective, you know, there's a lot of investment in time and money and energy into building out these worlds because they're not easy to do, especially if you want to create a very cool sort of interactive experience. So it's also, you know, one of the key factors also is adoption. You know, I don't want to start spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on building this epic thing and then, hey, no one uses the VeVeVerse. You know, so it is still a very early technology, and you know, as a business, you know, having that minimum viable product in various stages is really quite key. So I really want the VeVeVerse to grow quite organically. So we get users in there, we get their feedback, we understand what they want. Then there'll be an outcry about how, you know, there's nowhere else I can go in VeVe. And when I start seeing that kind of thing is when, you know, we'll start kind of going a little bit further down that path. But I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think it would be amazing to have all of these different themed worlds that you could go in. If you had a secret rare, you could enter this part of it, or you have to have a certain collectible even just to enter the world. So it becomes, these things become kind of like quite exclusive in the whole sort of overall metaverse.
So another thing that, kind of circling back to, we've been talking a lot about the VeVeVerse at this point, but I would like to circle a little bit back to the VeVe platform as well, and where they kind of merge. I'd like to touch on the MCP and the features that are being offered. So we're accumulating these points, and we hear that we'll be able to use them, but we're still kind of wondering. Unfortunately, I don't mean to do this, but like we're wondering at what point will we be able to do something with these points, and what other features are we going to be able to see, or can we hope to see? Not with any particular timeline per se, but what can we look forward to?
Absolutely. I mean, we've had just in full transparency, we rolled out the waitlist earlier in the year. That went okay for a little while, but then there was some sort of fundamental scalability issues that we found with it. And that has meant that we've had to focus quite a bit of our time on a rebuild of that system, and that includes all of the payment processes, the queuing system, the allocation system. So it was something that was unexpected, and yes, I did have a little bit of a grumble about it to the team, but that's kind of what's held up most things at the moment. So that is well into development at the moment, and then once the waitlist has been rolled out, there are a whole lot of cool things that we can do with that. It's been built in a way where we can kind of add plugins. So those plugins, for example, that you can use your MCP points to get greater priority. And the more MCP points you spend, obviously the greater advantage you will have to get that drop. And even beyond that, we can do things like you have to own a specific, you don't have to own a specific collectible, but if you own a collectible or you own a set, that will also give you an advantage. So let's say you're a massive Disney collector, you might get an X% priority advantage because we want to reward you because you're a Disney collector. Or it could be gated by rank, or it could be gated by level. So even though it has been, bit of a pain in the bum, to be honest with you, to have to rebuild the system, it's going to provide a lot more opportunity and a lot more functionality. So MCP points, the first opportunity, which and again, don't troll me, but I'm really hoping that is kind of going to be integrated around the end of this year, because I can tell you there's a lot of points being accumulated. There's going to be some high roller whales out there that are going to get be successful in the drops. And then after that, the next phase with MCP is, being able to use it to do things like purchase stuff from the store. Probably not IP related items because obviously there's costs associated with that. But, it would be like non-IP accessories, for your VeVe home space or kind of things like that. So we do have a long roadmap for MCP, which was fleshed out a long time ago. We are still absolutely dedicated to delivering that. It's just that, sometimes bleep happens.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that insight. And, another thing that I kind of want to super briefly touch on is the crypto pay-in and crypto payout. Has there been any headway in that department?
Yeah, I mean, we are always investigating different payment options. Obviously, there's a massive crypto audience out there, probably not spending much this moment in time. But it is something that we do want to implement. The challenge we have is, as a company, we are ultimately responsible for all of the funds that run through the platform. And that means that we need to make sure that there are, nothing is being exploited. There's nothing that we could ultimately become held accountable for if somebody was doing something dodgy with crypto, like let's say they were trying to wash it through the platform. I mean, the advantage of crypto is it's anonymous, and the disadvantage of crypto is that it's anonymous. So, as a company, we do have to be very careful on what payment goes through the platform. So we do have payment providers, we do have platforms, technologies. We also are very considerate at the moment of what is happening in the regulatory space. I think we probably want to wait things to settle a little bit there before we do dive deeper into crypto. But I'm a massive believer in crypto personally. Like, I think it is going to be the financial way of the future. I would love to be able to offer crypto, but again, it's not just like me ringing up Dave saying, "Hey Dave, let's not do crypto." There's a lot of factors that go on behind the scenes as to why we can't do it. I mean, even when we had crypto pay in last time, there was a lot of exploits, a lot of dodgy stuff going on. And the problem is that the small group of people actually ruin it for everyone. It's very, very unfortunate. Yeah, that's the primary reason. But hey, the future is open, and I do hope that is something that we can offer.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So talking about crypto, many people in the community are wondering about the progress of OMI, and then particularly the OMI utility program. Can you talk about that?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, so as we've mentioned, we've got teams on the OMI rollout at the moment. There's quite a few phases to this, and that might seem the reason why it seems like some of these features are taking a while to come out. But in the earlier days, going back earlier in the year, there was a lot of work done on just the fundamentals, our smart contracts, how everything works, just the structure of our whole sort of underlying blockchain system. And the reason we needed to focus on that is to make sure that we are able to offer and deliver the items that we have outlined in the OMI utility program. So obviously we've already most of that side of it's been completed. We've rolled out the OMI staking program, which allows you to get more MCP points. Bronze tickets is in development right now, and obviously all of the scoping, etc., has started around the OMI 2 NFT side of things, and then obviously beyond. So I know it might seem slow, but just keep in mind everything's slow with VeVe. It's not just one area that we're not focusing on. VeVe is very much like a big growing thing, and that's why a lot of the times these things take a while. And because we also work with a lot of these big IPs, we have to also be very considerate of their take on crypto and what they're comfortable with. That's not to say that they have control over it, but we obviously want to be sort of respectful in that area. So it's all still underway. It's all happening in the background. I mean, what can I say? We are slow at VeVe, but it's because we've got a lot going on.
Has the team for OMI gotten bigger, or have you focused more resources on that front just to get more features rolling out now that the company has been growing quite a bit?
Yeah, we absolutely have. I mean, typically we have like 3 features going at once on OMI, and it's all a balance. Like we can't go 90% of the company into OMI, because if we're not producing collectibles or VeVe, then what's the point of OMI? So it's very much about like a resource allocation on where we need to be spending our time and money. And there's going to become a time where we've got all of the bulk of what we need to do for VeVe. Obviously, there's always going to be new features coming along, and then we can start focusing a bit more on the OMI side of things. So yeah, I know everybody out there wants to know, when is it going to happen? What's going to happen? But we have produced the OUP, and that is still our roadmap. Yeah, sad to say, it's just going to happen when it's going to happen. I've given a couple of deadlines today, which I'm already feeling nervous about. I might have to go and disable my Twitter account. But yeah, just rest assured, it is all still happening in the background.
So a somewhat major concern for some members in the community is cash out, because at the moment, I think the minimum threshold to cash out is 500 gems, and then there is like maybe like a 10% fee on top of that. Do you have a plan to lower that threshold and that fee percentage?
Absolutely. I mean, these rules are in place for sort of specific business reasons. Obviously, like our cash out provider costs us money. We have to keep that. There's a team that's, devoted to keeping that part of the system up and running. So, there are sort of costs around it. But absolutely, as we start to move into 2024, there are measures, certain things that we have in the works right now, which I can't tell you about, but are very, very cool. That will allow us to, reduce those fees even further. I mean, at the end of the day, it would be great if you put $1 in, you can just take $1 out. We're still going to clip the ticket somehow because, we're a business. We have to cover our costs on, the payment provider side, service side, resources side. But the goal has always been to bring that down. It does require some platform changes before we can do that, which will be coming in.
Right. So another big feature is transfer. And in the past, you guys have mentioned transfer being a part of MCP. Is that still the plan, or can transfer be tied into KYC accounts, or how is that going to work?
Yeah, so I think many of your viewers may know that the reason we had to disable transfers is just because there was a lot of black market activity going on. Right. And we can't be tied to that. We can't be associated with that. And that was one of the main reasons we disabled the transfer feature, even though, and again, it's just these bad operators destroy it for everyone. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if on your show you can say, I'm giving away X amount of this, and you could just transfer it. So yeah, Mitch and I have actually scoped out quite a few options for the transfer feature. It will be based on your rank, and the higher your rank, the more you'll be able to do. There will still be fees involved because, as a business, we have to keep our licensors happy. And let's just say we open up transfers that might take 20% out of the market. And I'm not trying to say that, we're being greedy or anything like that, but, our licensors still expect that, their product is going to be sold through the secondary market, and,
right,
they're going to be able to clip the ticket. We still need that 2.5% to run the market because, that's the highest traffic part of the app. So we've come up with a few ideas based on the higher your rank, the more you'll be able to transfer, and the fees associated with that transfer likely won't be based on the floor price. There'll be some kind of algorithm that will work out, okay, this person's transferring a 41. This is what we would estimate the fees to be. So I'm not saying that that's exactly where we're going with it, but I just want to just highlight that we are listening to you, and we do understand I mean, I want to transfer stuff to my friends or some person I meet on the street. I'm like, hey, you'll love VeVe. Here's a free collectible. So it is a very cool, powerful feature. So we have a couple of options in play at the moment that we're scoping out, and I think they could work fairly well.
Do you think that you guys would take into account users who live under the same roof, specifically, family members?
The thing is, I think the challenge is that people will 100% exploit the system. And so it's very difficult for us to know. I mean, the amount of support tickets we had in the early days where it was like me and my 5 siblings, blah, 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 blah. And of course, it all ends up just being a fake scam, a fake story. Even with KYC, we actually, like, KYC is not 100% guarantee that you are a legitimate, actual person, under that identity. So all of this stuff may seem very black and white, but behind the scenes, it's there's so many ways that people can do fraud and exploit, and that's why we have to tighten these things down so tight. Whereas, even if we open it up a little bit, so people who are actually legitimate can use it, they're going to exploit it in some way. So I won't say too much more about it. I'll wait till Mitch and I continue to flesh it out, but it is something we definitely want to bring back into the app. It will be a little bit different from the way it is now. There will be some limitations. There will be fees involved, but the feature will be coming back in some form or another.
I mean, that's kind of good news for the people who are pretty anxious for that, especially the collectors who want to make some trades and not run that risk of other people sniping in the middle of a transaction.
Yeah, well, there's other features that we have in the pipeline as well. Like, for example, just one-to-one offer. So this is kind of part of the trade system where, I can say, so for example, I can look up, let's say I'm a mint collector, I'm a mint hunter. Right now, it's very difficult. I have to trawl through the platform to try and find a specific mint, and that may not even be listed in the market. So wouldn't it be amazing if I can just type in, I want this collectible, with this edition, list them all out for me, and then I'll have the opportunity to contact that person, whether it's on the market or not, and start a dialogue with them, do an offer, decline, offer, accept type system. Can't promise when this has come out. It actually has been fully scoped, but there's obviously a few features, we need to get out first. But these are absolutely where, when I said in the beginning of the show that, when I see VeVe in my mind, it's way into 2024. So, these are the features that we have, already scoped out and on the roadmap. Where they fall, I'm not 100% sure yet. That just always depends how smooth or bumpy things go. But it would be awesome to be able to do an offer to someone. So rather than me having to list it in the market and then say, hey, go find this particular item before someone snipes it, I can just do a direct, trade or a direct sale with you, or I can find a specific mint and then start that offer process. I think that's kind of the next stage of the next layer of the market. So it can be a bit more granular. People can find what they want.
Do you think in the meantime, direct messaging would be a viable option to hold people over? Because from my personal experience,
the reason we didn't roll out direct messaging is because, back in the early days, there were so many scams. And, since then, we've obviously done things like implement KYC and a whole lot of these other security features. But yeah, I mean, it is something we may introduce, but if we do, it will more than likely be part of the trade offer system, right? Like, if you guys want to talk to each other, like, you can use Twitter, you can use Facebook, you can use whatever. So we don't want to be just a chat app, but there are scenarios where, have been able to have a dialogue with someone works well. So say, for example, like, you've got edition number X and I want it, I can message you and I can include a message in that, like, please give it to me for this price because I really want it, or whatever. And then you can have a dialogue exchange like that. But at the moment, there's no, I just don't see a purpose for it being a specific chat app without any functionality associated with it, because that already exists. And there's no point kind of reinventing the wheel in that. But yeah, there are scenarios where chatting and having that dialogue will be very important.
Yeah, we actually talked quite a bit about that, like send offer feature on the podcast, simply because Mr. V is a specimen collector. So he spent too much time, to be honest, hunting different mints and stuff like that. So like one idea we had was you can send an offer, but it has to be at least floor or something like that to avoid like that one gem, like transfer kind of sketchy thing. So I'm very glad that you guys have thought about that idea.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It'll be floor or it'll be based on, what edition the mint number is, what the prices are listed in there, for example. It's just the next sort of layer of that market experience.
So this January, it sounds like you and David are attending the Crypto XR event in France. Is that gonna be focusing more on OMI or VeVe as a collecting platform? Can you tell us more about that event and your plan?
Absolutely. I mean, OMI is going to be a part of it, but one of the things that really is sort of our mission at the moment, because NFTs have gone. We've obviously all been through the bubble. You know, Dave and I were always very aware of the bubble, and we would tell our licensors and everyone like, hey, you're in a bubble right now. Don't expect this to continue forever. And now obviously there's, you know, a bit of negative sentiment towards NFTs. And also even, you know, even in the crypto space, like a lot of people see VeVe as not your keys, not your property type thing, you know, which I totally understand, you know, if you're a purist. But you know, we really still want to get VeVe out there because it is an NFT app. Yes, it is slightly different from other platforms, but that's because we are working with the world's biggest IP and because we have these special, different features within the app. So there is still going to be a big focus on VeVe, and I probably can drop something, which is that we will be announcing a pretty cool brand coming on board while we're
all right.
And when is that? Let me make it.
Good point, actually. All I know is that it's in January sometime.
Okay, I'll start saving up.
Well, it's not too far from you guys, right? It's just across the ditch.
Yep, across the pond. So you guys just had a very busy summer. Obviously, you guys went to you had a trip to Asia, to Korea and China, and then now you just had a huge Comic-Con event. Sounds like you guys did a lot of partnerships and marketing. So on the marketing side, what do you view as hurdles to clear that will bring more folks to more users to the app?
I think probably the biggest overall hurdle is, number one, just trying to dispel all of this negative sentiment around NFTs. I mean, yes, they were what they were. It went through a crazy time. But, you know, digital collecting is still super fun. I mean, you know, we wouldn't be on this call if, you know, you guys didn't enjoy the app and there wasn't a community that loved it. And really, at the end of the day, it is still just collecting, but it's in the digital medium. So number one is, you know, just helping to get people who are, you know, I guess more in the physical space, you know, getting an awareness and an understanding of what the digital collectible experience is, especially within VeVe. And, you know, that's why we are doing, you know, phygital partnerships like Funko, and there are some more coming up as we go into 24, because it creates like this perfect bridge between you collect the physical, but you've also got the digital side of it. So I think, you know, getting past that is, and I don't see that as a massive hurdle. I think it just requires a bit of education and, you know, getting the right partners on board, the right influencers on board, which is a big part of our 2024 marketing plan. And then from there, it's just really just putting our foot to the floor on marketing. I mean, as a business, you know, we do need to be careful. There is a bit of negative sentiment out there at the moment. So if we pour millions of dollars into marketing right now, you know, how much conversion are we going to get given the state of play at the moment? Especially we're in a bear market with crypto, NFTs. You know, if you read the headlines, are down 95%. So these kind of things, you know, we have to take into account, you know, as we're marketing and approaching the product. And that's why, yeah, we are approaching it in sort of slightly different ways with like our partnership with Funko and, you know, moving into physical with the comics and, you know, what we did with Addiction, which was totally awesome. I mean, those guys, you know, Vince and all, I mean, man, they just embraced the VeVe fam. It was so cool to see. Yeah, so that's really kind of the main hurdle. You know, on my side, we've got some big platform changes coming next year. That's going to make it a lot easier for anyone just to be able to use the app and to be able to come into it. And yeah, that's kind of the sort of the approach at the moment.
If you don't mind me asking, when you guys partnered with Funko for these Iron Man collectibles and their digital versions as well, what did you guys have much of a say in terms of whether or not there will be a matching edition on the collectibles themselves to mirror the digital collectibles?
I mean, we do our side, which is the digital side, and Funko do their side. Like there's no, like we don't tell them how to do their stuff because it's what they do. From our side of the business, there's going to be a promo code in every box, and they're going to get the equivalent variant, and that's the partnership. How Funko roll it out is, you know, I mean, that's sort of their business and their operation. But in saying that, you know, most Funko products are not numbered. You know, you on the front of the box, it'll say it's one of 250. So I think to expect that it was going to be numbered when Funko don't actually number their stuff, you know, it just ended up exactly the way they normally drop their product. The only thing I thought was a little bit, well, I won't say mean because it wasn't intentional, but you know, when you open the box and it says one of something, I know some people would have been like, "Oh my God, 40
This is
grand.
it. 40
It's coming
grand.
my way."
They're
I
rich.
think if we do it again, we'll you know, maybe we'll suggest they change their language. But then again, they didn't know that you know, David Yu was going to do the have his afterthought of like, he called me up, he's like, I really, really, really want that number one. So he's like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm like, all right, Dave, sounds like a Dave thing. You go for it.
So yeah, so I was just curious because I'd never dabbled in Funko collectibles in real life. So I was just curious. And then the other thing that I was curious about is with this being the first time that the sub 41s were being made available to the general public. Do you think that, you know, since this is the first time that that's happened with the digital collectibles, that post season 1, of course, do you think that this opens up doors and makes the company comfortable with exploring doing those sort of things in the future?
It's actually completely unrelated. There was with this particular partnership, we had to issue all of the editions. You know, I mean, you know, Dave and I were messaging them saying, you know, well, the company's got to, VeVe's got to at least keep number one. But just the way that the whole model works, etc., they all had to go out. So it's very different to the way that we drop things when it's just purely digital. And I know that the keeping of the 41 is a point of contention for a lot of people and something that we will address in the future. But it's, you know, there are also things like, you know, there are licensor obligations, there are contractual obligations where certain licensors get certain editions. So it becomes very, very complicated unless we redo all the contracts and say, you get this random stuff. So again, it's like everything with VeVe, you know, it's not like just me and Dave on the phone saying, we're going to keep the first 40. There are reasons that they are kept, but do understand it as a point of contention, as something we will look to potentially lower in the future. What we'll do with those editions, I don't know, but it is very unlikely that we'll put that stuff out on the market, you know. So I don't think there should be too much fear of that. I mean, sure, maybe from time to time there'll be a special prize of something here and there, but there shouldn't be a fear of all of that stuff getting, you know, washed out into the market at any point in the future.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for shedding light on that. Because you know, there were some rumblings and discussions in spaces, and it's good to know that we have some transparency with that.
I wanted to ask you about like the concept of open VeVe, meaning like people can come in and see the app and see market transactions and the drops without creating an account.
Have you been talking to some of our developers?
No, have not talked to anybody yet.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, so yeah, when I refer to some of the platform changes that are coming next year, that is one of the biggest.
Oh, wow.
Basically, will be an open, more like an e-commerce platform where you can come in and you only need to log in when is required, like when you want to buy something or you want to participate in the community, for example. I mean, that's one of my probably biggest for the platform coming into the future.
Right. Okay, got it. And so let me see. I think we went through pretty much everything on the list. And so maybe one last question would be, do you have like a message for the VeVe community on your plan until the end of 2023 and going forward to 2024, maybe like a forward-looking message of what people can, of like exciting things you have in mind or just anything?
Yeah, I would just like to say, we are always working hard to be there for the community and to please the community. We are collectors ourselves. We are working very hard night and day, throughout the entire team to produce a better platform, a better experience for everybody. I guess the main message is that, yeah, we are wanting to provide the absolute best platform we can within the limitations we have in our particular industry, which is IP based. So yeah, just stay positive. Like, don't always think that we have your best interests in mind. I mean, you guys know David. He's like a little 12-year-old collector boy. So and that's the type of people we are. We don't we want to make sure that we are creating what people want, and we do always listen. There's obviously just, like I said earlier, VeVe's a large complex platform, a large complex. So sometimes we can't move as fast as we need to, or some drama comes up like the waitlist. But yeah, coming into next year, I'm very excited about next year. I think we're, in terms of the sort of NFT technology adoption curve, we've been through the bubble. We're now down on the landslide. Post landslide is where everything just grows like that. And where there's people like you guys and other people in the VeVe fam, there are thousands more there. So yeah, we're still extremely bullish on the space, on digital collectibles, especially in the way that VeVe likes to offer them. So yeah, overall, I'm very excited, and as always, just extremely grateful for your patience and everything that you guys do in the community, your support. Yeah, please don't feel bad if you tag me or whatever on socials. Like, I generally never on socials. I'm pretty much just in my little dark office, grinding away. David's the show pony. He'll answer your questions.
Dan, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I have to say, this is the best interview we have ever done, and it just had so much insight, and we really appreciate you sharing. And personally, I've been using VeVe since February 2021. So I came in my first, so I was not as early as some other OGs, but I was pretty early. And so I have seen you guys, I've seen like the VeVe without a market, VeVe with a drop every 2 weeks. And it's just awesome to see you guys overcoming these challenges and keep growing. For example, like getting that partnership with Marvel and then Disney and IMX and Waitlist. And I also like do a lot of research. We do a lot of research for this podcast. So we look at the videos you and David were so excitedly presenting to the folks at the Hillary Edmond Foundation and those kind of things. And having, and I'll also look at your Facebook ads, and I'm seeing how much marketing effort you guys are doing on that front. It's just amazing to see. And then finally, we had the opportunity to meet you in person at New York Comic Con and actually see the VeVe booth next to Marvel. Like, it's just crazy. Like, when I came in, I saw people lining up on the VeVe side instead of Marvel. And that kind of blew me away. And then I realized how big Funko is, and that party and the community too. You guys have built a truly awesome product with a great community. And again, I really appreciate you spending your precious time and sharing so many cool insights with us today. It made my day.
Amazing. No, thank you so much for the kind words. And I would just like to say it's a two-way street. Dave and I had an idea to build something, but it's people like you guys and all of the other content creators and people in the community who support us that turned VeVe into what it is. And that is why it is called the VeVe fam, because we literally are a big family. All, yeah, sure, we argue, there's issues, there's no doubt about that, but we are all there to support each other and grow something grow something like the VeVe into what it can be.
All right. Thank you, Dan. And we look forward to having you on in one of the future episodes again.
Thank you so much, guys.
That is it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have enjoyed the episode today. And if you have, remember that gentleman agreement. We will continue working until 1 a.m. just for you. But in return, we ask you to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out on the actionable and valuable insights, everything VeVe and OMI related. Don't forget to give us a rating and tweet at us to let us know what you think about the podcast so that we can refine the content better just for you. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again next time. Peace.